Return to Booger Valley. Well, folks, I'm not exactly sure how to go about telling a story, or hell, if you're even going to believe it. I don't think I even would if I would have lived it. You see, most people have this idea that these damn boogers, Bigfoot, Sasquatches, whatever you want to call them, are just bloodthirsty killing creatures. It's what I thought for a long time too. Well, lately I've had an experience change my mind. I don't think people give these creatures enough credit for their intelligence and just how adaptable they are. Well, you'll see what I'm talking about. Well, now that Papa Harold and my grandmother are gone, you see, I own the farm, and I stayed on as a sheriff's deputy a long time. After I left there, I worked for a private security group for a while. Not your, everyday security group like guards banks and hotels and stuff like that. We specialized in high-value target. Boy, I thought the academy was rough. But these dudes, they showed me stuff and taught me stuff that, well, I'm thank God now that I do have that training, because I believe it saved my life. Well, after the fire that Papa helped set, it drove the boogers out of that area for a while, but they didn't stay gone. But they learned, they leave us alone, we leave them alone. We had a few occurrences here and there, stuff that you don't hear about on the local 5 o'clock news, kept pretty hush-hush. That was up until about a month ago. Then things kind of got sideways, easiest way I can describe it. I was down at the local lumber store, picking up some supplies, fence posts, stuff like that. I don't have any livestock anymore, but I like to keep the fences in, good order. It keeps the boundaries. It keeps squabbles down between neighbors and lets who know, hey, this is my area, that's your area. You don't cross and I won't cross. Well, like I say, I was picking up some supplies, and I overheard two of the guys talking. Hey, have they found that couple yet? That piqued my interest. So I kind of got a little closer, like I was, shopping, and just so I could listen, eavesdrop. The other guy said, no, my brother's a detective on the sheriff's department. He says he don't think they're going to find them. If they do, it's not going to be alive with as much blood and everything that was there. Well, that really got my interest. I hadn't heard of any crime scenes or anything else. So I just looked at him and asked him, hey, what couple is missing? What are you talking about? You haven't heard? No. What, have you been living under a rock? No, dude, I just kind of stay out the farm and stay to myself. Well, fella, it's been all over the news. Okay, well, like I said, I haven't heard about it. What's going on? I heard you say a whole bunch of blood. He said, yeah. He said, the local kids were out at the old movie theater. The drive-in one. Well, there were two teenagers that had went out there to hook up. Well, they didn't come home that night, and the parents got worried. So they started calling around and asking questions, and that's the last place that some of their friends had seen them or heard they were going. So they sent the law out there to check it out. Yeah, that's right on the outside of town, isn't it? He said, yeah. Well, he said, well, when the sheriff's department pulled up there, they found what used to be a Toyota Tacoma parked at the edge of the woods, which would have been the boys' vehicle, and it looked like it had been in a demolition derby. Okay, what happened? Do they know? No. That was as far as I'd heard from first. Then I talked to my buddy here, and his brother's a detective on the sheriff's department, and he said that the vehicle looked like it had been in a crash. But the thing is, there was no skid marks, there was no nothing. It wasn't even close to the trees. It was just demolished, and there was blood all over the inside of the vehicle. It looked like something had ripped the doors off. That's when the hair stood up on the back of my neck. Did you say it looked like something had ripped the doors off? Did they find any footprints or anything? He said, I thought you said you didn't hear about this before. I hadn't. Did they find any footprints? Yeah, there was these crazy, giant, weird looking footprints that he said they found. They thought it was, at first it was like, somebody in big clown shoes or something, but shaped like feet. I dropped everything in my hands and took off out the door. This sounded too eerily familiar. I headed straight to the sheriff's department. Went up to the front desk and asked for the detective that was in charge of the missing persons case. They asked me why. I said I need to talk to him now. They said he was out and he would have to call me. You can go up to Mr. Harold's old place. I'm his grandson and I'm living there now, so tell him to meet me up there. Well, the next day, about lunchtime, the sheriff's vehicle pulls up. Deputy guy of his vehicle walked up on the porch where I was sitting. Said, yes, I'm Detective Dave with the sheriff's department. They said you wanted to talk to me about the missing couples case. Yeah, why don't you pull up a seat here? Okay, well, what information do you have for me? Well, I wouldn't really say it's information. I had something I wanted to talk to you about. Sir, do you have information or not? I'm really busy and we have a lot we're still trying to uncover on this case. Well, just hold on. Just give me a minute, please. What have you heard about the local folklore around here? What are you talking about? You ever heard the word booger? Booger? You talking about like your nose booger? No. Like monsters booger. He just looked at me like I had grew an arm out the front of my head or something. You talking about that old folklore about a bunch of guys getting together and running some of these monsters out of the woods, supposedly? Fella, it's not no supposable. This here's the farm where it happened at. I can take you down to the valley where it happened. But I don't think you want to do that. See, we have an understanding, kind of, you say, with these creatures. We don't go down there, and they don't come out here. Look, I don't have time for this nonsense. Do you have information or not? Well, I've got a couple things I want to ask you. See if this sounds familiar. Did you find any long hairs? And he just kind of looked at me. What do you mean by long hairs? Well, they kind of resemble a horse hairs from its tail, but they're a lot thicker, a lot coarser. And they got a weird, funky odor. Then he sat down and leaned back in his chair. And the footprints. How big were they? He said, how did you know about the footprints? What's going on here? What do you know, and who are you? Hold on. Let me finish asking a few questions, and I'll answer yours. You say there was blood, right? You didn't find any bodies. He just kept looking at me. Well, you let me know when I hit another area. Didn't find any drag marks either, right? The doors, they were pulled completely off the vehicle. Then he got a little bit, what would you call it? Irate. Look, you need to identify yourself right now. And then you need to let me know where you were on March the 3rd. Depends on what time, March the 3rd, because that just happens to be when I buried my grandfather. This is Mr. Harold's old place. So you're Mr. Harold's nephew? No, I'm his grandson. Oh. Yeah, I've heard of you. You used to be a sheriff's deputy, didn't you? Yeah. Well, to answer your questions, yes, to about all of them. But we did find some drag marks. The funny thing is, the drag marks were already in the edge of the woods. That's where they started. And whatever it was, had to have been a horse or something. Somebody drug off with some kind of piece of equipment. Well, did you find any tire tracks, treads? Well, no. Well, don't you think if somebody used a tractor or something to drag a horse off with, you would have seen that? And why do you think it was a horse? Or any kind of cattle? There's no fences out there. There's no reason why that should be there. Well, that's the only thing it could have been. We think the boy seen somebody's horse or cow out on the edge, got scared, fired a few shots. Wait a minute, wait. Fired a few shots? Yeah, we found empty shell casings from a 9mm. Oh, that's not good. What do you mean that's not good? Well, Dave, I think what you have here is a case where these two youngsters were out there. They were being watched by one of these boogers that you apparently don't believe in. But trust me, they exist. He seen it, got spooked, decided to pop a few rounds off at it, may have hit it, and then one of the others retaliated and killed them. He said, this just sounds like a sick movie plot. What gives you the idea that this is the scenario that happened without seeing the scene? Well, I might not have seen that scene, but I've seen plenty others that I know the boogers were involved in. And the one thing we do know, the people that do believe in it, if you hurt one or if you intentionally try to scare it, it will retaliate in the only means it knows. That is full-on fight. And trust me, you don't want to fight with one of these things, not even with one of the small ones. Well, I think you've been alone out here too long. Well, I tell you what, Dave, how about you meet me out here at my house about 8 o'clock or so? And we'll have a cup of coffee and, we'll see if you just can't get your mind changed. Why 8 o'clock? Well, that's usually about the time they start up. What? Just be here at 8 o'clock. So Dave just shakes his head, gets up, goes back to his patrol car, takes off back down the driveway. Well, I didn't think I would see him again. And then that evening about 7:30, here comes Dave. Except Dave has the new sheriff with him. They get out, come up on the porch. And I've got a pot of coffee sitting there. Had to go back inside and get another cup for the sheriff, but we accommodated him. The sheriff sat down and said, I hadn't been out here since I was a youngster. You used to come out here when you was a youngster? That's right, Jameson. I just looked at him. Do I know you? He said, no, you didn't know me, but I knew Mr. Harrell pretty well. Loved to call me boy. Yeah, I think he called everybody boy. Loved that old man, though. Most of my friends call me Jay. Well, okay, we'll call you Jay then, because we're friendly, right? Yes, sir. Well, Dave says, you got something to show us? Well, I didn't say us, but yeah, just sit around. It's not like I have a button I can hit to make it start happening. And the sheriff was just fixing to say something, and then all of a sudden you heard the wail. Both of them kind of went stiff-necked. What in the hell was that? That, Dave, is what you don't believe in. That was a booger, sounding off to the other boogers to let him know where they were, I believe. What? The sheriff said. Now wait a minute. Then you heard it sounded like 50 wolves and a train whistle all go off at once. Well, that did it right there for the sheriff and Dave. They jumped up. The sheriff said, look, I don't know what kind of damn games you're playing here. Sheriff, I'm not playing any kind of games. And they both jutted off the porch, started around the side of the house. I said, hey, where you going? We're fixing to figure out and get down to the bottom of what exactly is going down here. And they started walking towards the wood line. I stopped them. Hey, you don't want to do that. What do you mean we don't want to do that? What's going on here? Sir, if you go down there, you're probably not coming back. What do you mean? Is that a threat? No, sir. I'm trying to save your life. You just need to hold off just a minute. And all of a sudden, Dave says, Sheriff, What is that? And right off in the distance, by the fence line that I like to keep up, were two boogers standing there. They were about 8 foot tall, I'm gonna say, according to the fence. What kind of games are you playing here? Who is that down there by that fence? Sir, that's not a him, that's a what? Dave reached and grabbed a light from his belt, shined it down that way before I could tell him they don't like that. And as soon as the light hit them, all of a sudden that wail went off. And I believe then they understood that was a creature, not a person. Because both of them went like Casper White. Then all of a sudden, way off in the distance, I heard a call that I'd never heard before. Well, it didn't take them long then to get back in front of the house, back to their vehicles. I said, wait, whoa, folks, where you going? What in the hell is going on out here? Sir, this ain't just started. This has been happening for as long as I've been a kid, as long as I can remember. How about I meet you back at your office tomorrow? Well, that sounded real good to them because they didn't want to stay there any longer. Well, it didn't take them long to get turned around and tear off down the driveway. I myself went back to the front porch to finish the rest of my coffee. I wasn't too worried about them coming up to the house or them bothering me. They never had, not since that fire. I don't know if they were scared that we would do it again or if they understood, hey, you need to stay there and we'll stay here, but they just never came back. Until now, it seems. As I was sitting there drinking my coffee, that last sound, I said, I never had heard that before. It just bothered me, you know. Was it a hurt one? Was it what? It just didn't sound right. Well, I finished my coffee, went inside, went upstairs, started reading a new book. Well, apparently I had fell asleep reading my book. And I got woke up to this. Sounded like two trains coming through the woods. I'm talking about just crazy sounding. Well, I got up off the bed, went to the window. I couldn't see nothing, but I'd be damned if it wasn't getting louder. What in the hell is that noise? Then all of a sudden I seen something dart from beside the old barn down to the tree line and then clear the fence like a runner clearing a hurdle. What in the world is going on? I just stood there watching. I don't know what I thought I was going to see, but I just couldn't tear myself away from that window. Then I heard that crazy scream, yell, along with a bunch of sounding like trees hitting, cars crashing. It was like I was frozen in fear. I don't know how much time went by or exactly what time it was. I know it was late in the early morning. It was so pitch black. The moon wasn't even really shining. Well, I can tell you one thing. I knew there was no way I was going outside, going towards where that noise was. Not right now. I just backed up, went and sat on my bed, and just stared at the window, listening to every little sound, every little creak, every little pop, wondering what in the hell was that noise. It couldn't have been a booger. I've never heard them make that noise before.